Welcome back to Epistemics. On today's show, we're back with Mohammed Hijab. Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Alaikum warahmatullah.
How's it going?
Not bad, alhamdulillah.
We're just filming after one episode we just finished, so
Yes.
It's not another day. We're continuing on the same topic, which is to do with scientific miracles of the Quran.
Yes.
Now we're going to address an individual who's quite popular online amongst his followers. That's Aron.
Mm-hmm.
He's started a series called something to do with the Quran study. And he had a video go up in the beginning of September called Scientific Errors in the Quran, something like this, episode 1. Now, in this, he's on a podcast. He's got another guy, another uncle from, I don't know where he's from, maybe from somewhere in the world. And there was a Muslim brother that was on, and had him on, and they were discussing certain verses of the Quran, trying to show scientific inaccuracies, right? Now, we've touched upon this in the previous episode regarding the scientific miracles and why you can't claim scientific miracles and the correct sort of view to take on natural phenomena and how it ties in with the Quran. Maybe we can summarize it again in this video, anyone that hasn't watched the previous video. And then after that, once we've done that, I want to sort of bring to play one of the examples Aron Ra uses. And with him, there's a bigger problem than with the rationality rules and genetically modified skeptic as we dealt with them last time. But we'll get to that when we get to Aron Ra. So just quickly, bro, if you want to summarize for us, what is the issue with the scientific miracles in the Quran? Why shouldn't we claim scientific miracles?
So there's two issues which I talked about in the previous episode. One of them is from a philosophy of science perspective, and the other one's from a hermeneutical or tafsir perspective. Hermeneutical perspective. From a philosophy of science perspective is the incorrigibility that basically science is not always right. It's not always eternal. It's not always correct. Even what is referred to as scientific fact changes from time to time. And it's reviewed, and in fact science is built upon the process of falsification, which means that if you discover a scientific fact today, it could very well be falsified in your lifetime, or if not your lifetime, your children or your great grandchildren's time. So in other words, you never know that this fact is always going to be as it is.
Yes.
So we can't use this and now start to interpret Quran, because we're not sure how long lasting this is, how true this is, and there's another issue of scientific language as well. It's geared towards human beings.
Yes.
I mean, things are the way. Look, for example, I was talking with Faraz Zahabi actually in Abu Dhabi recently, and he said something really interesting. He said that we look at the world with the human perspective. For example, colors, right? We look at the world with different colors: red, green, black, and whatever. But is the world actually composed of these colors, or is that just our perspective of the objects around us? A dog sees the world in black and white, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a deep philosophical.
So the point is, if the dog was conducting science in that hypothetical world, the results would be different. Not because the objects around that dog are different, it's just because the perspective of the dog is different, right? And so there are lots of things relating to science which we need to flesh out. One of them is perspective, one of them is corrigibility and eternality. Another thing is falsification. So that's from a philosophy of science perspective. From a hermeneutical perspective, we can't say that something is 100% correct, 100% true, unless we have very heavy evidence for it. And even then, you could even say that it doesn't reach yaqeen, like a high level of certainty, especially with these laboratory experiments. Honestly, it really, believe me, a lot of these experiments, they have this thing called, I think it's called cytometrics or something like that, where literally they, scientists' job is not just to go in and to make new scientific investigation. Scientists' job is to falsify pre-existing investigation. To try out what other scientists have said, peer review it, and see if it stands to scrutiny in the same conditions or not. And if they're doing their job properly, which I was reading an article in The Economist one time, they will discover the fault of other scientific experimentation. So in other words, they will debunk scientific fact. If scientists are doing their job properly, they will reverse what is referred to as scientific fact. So therefore, I mean, science is not this absolute truth, which all truth must rest.
As Dawkins,
and that's the thing. Dawkins makes it. He keeps talking about evidence, but this evidence is not incorrigible. It's not eternal. It's not perfect, and it's falsifiable. This is the point. And that's what actually makes, ironically enough, that's what makes science a very rigorous and strong method, because
that's the beauty of science itself, because it's about always working towards the truth, but never actually arriving at truth.
Yeah,
right?
so we have an agnostic attitude towards a lot of science, but we don't we use it. We're pragmatic. We use science because this is the best we've come to. Right, and it has a high utility functionality.
Yeah.
But utility functionality doesn't always translate into truth value.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can have something like Newtonian physics, which has a high utility functionality, but in reality, it doesn't always translate into absolute fact.
Yep. Okay, so that's the science side of things. Touch upon the Quran. So what's
So with the Quranic, from the Quranic perspective, once again, that sometimes with these verses, those verses can have multiple possible meanings. And therefore, to say, no, is this meaning rather than this meaning for sure, because of the qarina of science, or because of science as a distinguishing thing or a filter, may be problematic, because you're closing doors to other interpretations. And that might have jurisprudential implications. To just give you one example of that, for example, if we talk about the womb of, the age of, the time of abortion, So most madhahib, most scholars that I've seen say it's 120 days, which is 3 months, 4 months. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 4 months, So that's what most scholars say, but some scholars say it's 40 days. In fact, that's the opinion of the Hanabila. So according to that school of thought, it's possible, obviously not recommended, but it is possible to have an abortion before 40 days, but not after 40 days. Because installment doesn't take place before that time period. And also, that's connected to the hadith, for example, of Ibn Mas'ud, where it says, إِنَّ أَحَدَكُمْ لَيَجْمَعُ فِي بَطْنِ أُمِّهِ 40 يَوْمًا نُطْفَةً ثُمَّ يَكُونَ عَلَقَةً بعد ذلك ثُمَّ يَكُونَ مُضْغَةً بعد ذلك. You know, that one of you is going to stay in your mother's womb as a nutfa, and then it becomes a alaqa after that, and then it becomes a mudgha after that. Now the question is this the tarahi, which means is it one stage after the other or not? Is it one stage after the other or not? Is the stage between alaqa and mudgha a time period, or is the alaqa and mudgha stage somehow connected, or is there an overlap? And the same question, فَكَسَوْنَا الْعِظَامَ لَحْمًا in the Quran, where it says we have clothed the bones with flesh. Is that happening simultaneously, or is it happening one after the other? And there is a difference of opinion there. So you can't say that, okay, it definitely means it's happening one after the other. The scientific meaning might, a lot of people come and say embryology, the Quran is wrong because it says that the bones come first and then the lahm. But that's only if you interpret it in that way. You could interpret it in an unscientific way, and you can interpret it in a scientific way. And sometimes I prefer to interpret the Quran in an unscientific way. No problem. I don't have a problem with that, because I know the malleability of science, the flexibility. I know that this one is scientific and this one's unscientific.
Plus, there may be a deeper meaning. There may be a deeper meaning behind the verses.
I don't mind.
May restrict,
but
by
we try and be pragmatic.
It's
not a problem. But science for us is not a god. It's not 100% correct. So there is a level of
it's actually balancing. A tool that should lead us to appreciating the signs of God. But unfortunately, for many, it doesn't these days, because they don't have the full perspective, I guess. But that being said, I think people go back to the previous video and watch that, because we had a really detailed discussion about why you can't claim scientific miracles. Also, another easy way of looking at it, bro, is the way I like to see is that, look, you're taking a method which is based on a limited human mind and faculties and abilities, and you're trying to use that limited method to now establish the words of God. There's a problem in that.
Yes, and look, there are ways that the scholars have spoken about which establish the truthfulness of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the haqq of the truth of the Quran. The best way is just the realization of Tawheed. That is the best way. Because it resonates with not just the rational mind,
but the nature of
but
the human being.
Deep fitrah of the human being. Like most people that we have spoken to have become Muslim have not been because of scientific so-called miracles of the Quran. They have been Muslim because of Tawheed. Ask anybody. That's da'wah. They'll tell you, when you speak to them about one God and the fact that he's worthy of worship, and you separate that one God from the gods of, for example, Trinitarian Christianity and Hinduism, and and even different kinds of form of pantheism and so on and so forth, it's just naturally attractive.
Yes.
It's naturally attractive,
Yeah.
but it's also very reasonable and rational.
Yeah.
And it can be rationalized through arguments like the contingency argument, which can also be a cosmological argument of some sorts. This argument, that argument. So it can be rationalized, but it's also something which is innate.
Yeah.
Which many have already spoken
And
about.
that's the powerful thing about Islam, because it
Yes.
appeals to the human being on every single level.
But in addition to that, you have things like the Quranic language, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks, miracles of the Quran relating to predictions. Look how many
Yes.
predictions there are.
Yeah.
There's a new book that's been written about the
Forbidden prophecies. Yeah.
Just look at the Quran and Islam is the only religion which gives predictions of the future, which one after the other materialize in incredible way.
Yeah.
Yani that's way stronger than the scientific.
Of
You know
course.
why?
Yeah.
Because the scientific method is about what's going to happen in the future. If I'm a scientist and I go into a laboratory today and I find out something about science, I put something into a journal, right? And then it's peer reviewed 50 years after I die, or 100 years, and they disprove what I've written. So what I have said has been falsified. So in other words, scientific fact has a propensity to falsification, it's susceptible to falsification. Whereas when we talk about events that happened in the past, we have a hindsight perspective now.
Yes.
So if I'm saying, look, the Quran predicts that Islam will spread to these countries, Yemen, Syria, Egypt, blah 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 blah, to even India and Pakistan, for example, right? And that is true. Quran and Hadith makes a prediction, the Arabian Peninsula, so on and so, very specific kinds of predictions. Those things happen in the past, which means to say, I can check it. They're no longer susceptible to the same levels of falsification.
Yes.
You could say to a lower level, because then our facts of history may change based on new evidence, but to a much lesser level, because facts of history have gone and come and gone.
Yeah.
Whereas in the future, it's much more vulnerable now.
Yes.
The scientific fact is much more vulnerable to being falsified.
Yes, that's a really interesting insight as well. But I think for me personally, bro, the whole point about it appeals to the human nature, because Islam is very experiential.
Yes.
Like you said, just the understanding that Islam gives about life, so about who God is first and foremost, His oneness, about the purpose of life, because purpose is something human beings strive for, they're looking for, right? About what happens after life and ultimate justice. All of these concepts in Islam are very, what we say, fitri, they're very natural, innate to the human being. And on top of this, when you practice Islam and the results you get from doing that, that's very experiential. And that sometimes, I would argue, that's probably the greatest proof any human being could have, is how something impacts and changes them as a human being. Because at the end of the day, when all the whole rational discourse and jargon is and the back and forth are done, what we really believe in, what really impacts us, is what changes us as a human being, what affects us on a personal level, right? And something people overlook a lot as well sometimes. But that being said, we've clarified about the scientific miracles and why, number one, it's not correct, and number two, why you don't need to rely upon it, because there's so many other things, like you said, prophecies and the message and all of these types of things. That being said, bro, Aron Ra, let's go to his video now, right? We don't have to address it now because I think we've done enough already to address him. But one thing I want to really highlight to people that are watching this is why people like him should not be taken as any level of authority when it comes to understanding the Quran.
I don't think many people would. I mean, he called me on his show, by the way.
Yeah.
Kept emailing me. I just completely ignored him. And the reason why I ignored him is because in the beginning, I didn't know what he was about. I only watched his debate with Sabor, which Sabor really dominated in that debate.
The evolution debate.
Yeah. Or as Khabib puts it, he had to, Sabor dominated a little bit,
A little bit, yeah. Alhamdulillah.
But what I was going to say was, then I wanted to see what the show was about, and it was just making a mockery out of the verses of the Quran. And I thought, you're trying to put me on a show that I'm meant to be making a mockery out of my own, like you're using me as a tool to, I'm not, I'm not an idiot. SubhanAllah. It's unbelievable that it's disrespectful that you actually even had the audacity to call me on such a show.
Yeah, honestly, it was a joke, because I watched that video, right?
Yeah.
And it was an absolute joke, bro. It's like watching monkeys trying to drive a car, literally, right? Well, because what they're doing, bro, is
I like that.
Is they're taking but honestly, if you watch it, bro, you probably laugh like you never laughed before, yeah? Because they take a verse of the Quran and he imposes his strange interpretation and almost forcefully says, "This is it," right? So, for example,
that's fine.
I'll give you one of the verses. One of the places he says is a scientific inaccuracy in the Quran is chapter 55 or 53, verse 45 and 46, where Allah speaks about creating the male and female in pairs, and then Allah says, "Min nutfatin ida tumna," that that it's from the nutfa when it's emitted, right? Now, this is what his interpretation is. The Quran here, God is saying that the male and the female human beings are created only from the male discharge. And therefore the Quran is wrong because God does not know about the female emission and God did not have the scientific information. Therefore the Quran is inaccurate. Can you see the problems?
Well, as we said before, he's doing the opposite of what Muslim apologists do. He's being reactionary to the Quran.
Yes.
He's desperate to get his money on PayPal or whatever. If people send him money.
Patron. He has a patron.
I've got Patron.
Loads of people do. So
I've got a Patron as well, actually.
Let's try that again.
No problem. We can keep on. Let them know. But he's desperate to get the people on Patron because that's what he's about now, right?
Yeah.
He's become a theologian all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Even though he has no understanding. That's why he wanted me on the show, to teach him.
Yes.
But if you wanted me on the show to teach him,
why
is he trying to teach us?
There was a Muslim brother on the show who did quite a good job on this a few of the on these points. But obviously he doesn't want to be taught because he was imposing his opinion of what the verse is.
Once again, we have another long-haired atheist. We talked about
you got a thing with long-haired
No, it's
atheists.
a thing. I mean, what is this thing?
Is it because your hair is really short, bro?
It's just...
is that what it is?
It's just these long-haired atheists. It's just the stereotype where you always got these long hair. Like, what the hell, man? It's not a problem. The Prophet had longer hair at one time. But it's that stereotype, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, you have a long-haired atheist who's sitting in his garage or something, talking about after a pizza or two, talking about issues which he has no business in talking about.
Yeah,
really, like he genuinely, and he's speaking about with confidence.
Yeah,
which is delusion of grandeur.
Yeah.
To answer his question, the Quran says that min nutfatin idha tumna, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in the Quran, إِنَّا خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ مِن نُطْفَةٍ أَمْشَاجٍ نَبْتَلِيهِ فَجَعَلْنَاهُ سَمِيعًا بَصِيرًا. We have created the human being from a mixed nutfa, like the male and the female one. And it's Surah Al-Insan, chapter 76 of the Quran. I think verse 2. So the point I'm making is that you have to have a holistic understanding, not decontextualize in the Quranic discourse. And not only just the Quran, you have to have knowledge of the hadith as well. Quran doesn't say just this. But you can keep trying to force the puzzle in. And once again, this happens both ways. Muslims do that as well. They'll try and I heard some Muslims talk about quantum physics in the Quran, trying to put that puzzle in, force it in. Come on, brother, come on. Really, did this Allah mean the quantum vacuum and this and black holes? Did he mean that? Are you sure he meant that? You can't say that he meant that. And obviously this guy doesn't know what he's talking about either. So this guy, I think, is run out of breath, academic breath, because he doesn't have much of philosophical knowledge and theological knowledge, and these are the two issues that he's talking about.
To be honest, bro, I think
what is he, a paleontologist?
I don't know what he is, bro, but I think we really needed to expose this point, bro, because because people shouldn't be referring to him at all, right? So anyone that's watching this or watches him, at least when it comes to the Quran, there are many better sources out there that you can refer to. So for example, the verse where you said Allah says nutfatin amshajin. That one insight we get from this is that the word nutfa itself is not restricted to the male emission.
Yes,
right. Because here nutfa is referring to thing. Dr. Mustafa Khattab said that the word nutfa linguistically means it's a selection. It could be from the male, the female, or a combination of the both. Right. Now, but I think if we go back to that verse and just really press on this a bit, bro, the verse he's referring to, verse 46 of the chapter, where Allah says that it's from the nutfa when it's emitted. If we assume that this is the correct understanding, Allah is specifically here referring to the male emission, which I think it is. Is that
in that verse? Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't mean the structure, and you can give us some insight on this as well. The structure of that particular ayah does not suggest in any way, shape, or form that Allah is saying it's
only that
human only comes from the male emission. It's not like Allah saying وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. There is not that ma, and there's no illa, there's no then exception. There's no exception there. So where does he get this this idea that God is saying that it's only from the male.
Well, this is the importance.
Why would he do that, bro?
This is the importance of having. You just mentioned something interesting, which is it's called al-istithna in Arabic language, and there's different kinds of istithna. This is what you just talked about is a very strong kind of istithna.
Yes.
And there's different discussions. Sometimes al-istithna can be mansoob and sometimes it can be marfu' and so on and so forth. وَمَا أَنْسَانِيهُ إِلَّا الشَّيْطَانُ أَنْ أَذْكُرَهُ. For example, this is an example of what you just mentioned. وَمَا إِلَّا.
Yes.
So, and then you have istithna that is connected and disconnected. All of this stuff is deep Arabic language, right? Grammar.
Yeah.
How are you gonna know this? And you don't even, I mean, seriously, you don't know how to speak the language. That's why he wanted me on the show, to teach him these things. But why should I go on the show and teach you if you're like an upside down cup that, you know, I put the juice in or put the water in and it's just going to spill all over the place. Look, I think you should just stick to doing whatever it is he does, which isn't philosophy and it isn't theology. I suggest, you know, he does whatever it is he does, paleontology, try and help the world in that way, because this is wasting everyone's time.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the sad thing is, bro, I think he had an Arabic speaker on the show who was as bad as him, if not worse, when it came to interpreting those verses, right? So it just baffles me, bro. But I think, like you said, you know, he should stay in his lane. And if he
doesn't have a lane, where's his lane?
I don't know where his lane is, bro.
Okay, just, you know, he needs to stop talking about religion because it's not his field.
Yeah, and you can see by videos such as this where he absolutely butchers verses.
What's the point of doing this, anyways? You're wasting all of our time, mate.
Yeah.
You know, leave it to someone who's going to do a better job and give us a challenge. Seriously,
absolutely.
Leave it. We actually do want a challenge. Yeah. But if it's going to be someone like you, then when we defeat you, as we have before, like as Sabur has decisively. In philosophy, which is closer to home for you, right? When you're defeated, then people will say, well, he didn't know much. From your side, not from our side. So let's not waste time with you.
And like I said, bro, you know, the previous video we did, we touched upon, genetically modified skeptic and who's the other atheist with long hair that you... Rationality rules, yeah.
What are these people's actual names?
I don't know. I think the
Steve?
I don't know.
I can remember because I was meant to debate one of them, but his name was Steve, I believe.
Okay, so Steve, let's just call him
maybe,
Rationality
I don't know. Yeah.
But they were a bit more honest in their approach because they didn't try to interpret the verses, you know, themselves. What they said,
that was better. Yeah.
Here's what it says, but you know, this is why we say it's not a miracle.
Yeah,
right?
it was. I don't know. It was these guys, what their field is background. Well, we knew Cosmic Skeptic went to Oxford.
He's going to Oxford, I think.
Yeah, he's still going to Oxford. So. So we kind of knew that he had some level of education, right? He'd done his A-levels, whatever, and he's doing Oxford, so whatever. But this guy, we don't know what what is their background? Sorry, what is their training?
We don't know. I don't know. Maybe we can. Some of the followers.
What is their no, I'm not saying it as an ad hominem attack. I'm just saying I'm asking a question. I would like to know what your training is.
And to be honest, bro, like even if let's suppose
because what happens is when they're suppressed, and they're neutralized, say this is not my field. That's what a lot of them do.
And to be honest, bro, I would even say, look, even if they haven't got a background, I'm not saying they don't, but at least the approach Rationality Rules took was a bit more of a genuine approach. I don't know the Arabic language. I haven't studied no, he doesn't say that. But even the way he comes across, it's almost like, okay, this is what it says. We'll go by what's translated
this guy says,
and stick with that. But what Aron Ra seems to do is he brings his own interpretation. And I really believe he does this because he has an agenda. He wants to disprove the Quran and show there's errors in it. And to do that, he's going to such a level now where he's making things up about the Quran, which are plain as day for people to see. Right, like we've clarified here. Nowhere does the verse, the structure of the verse, in any way, shape, or form suggest that God is saying that human beings only came from the male semen. You know, it's the same as saying, it's like if I say to you, bro, John drives a blue car, or John has a blue car, right?
It's not the only car, is it?
We know John has a blue car, but does it mean John doesn't have a red car at home? Of course not. It would be different if we said John only has a blue car, right?
It's easy to see why he was taken down by someone.
Yeah, I think so. But I think we can conclude there. Any loss? Okay, let's end on this. Aron Ra's watching, bro. Give him some advice when it comes to studying the Quran.
My advice to him is to be humble. Like we all have to be humble with knowledge. Yeah. And if you want to approach the Islamic discourse, you can try and do so in a mocking way. You have freedom of speech in your country. And no one's going to stop. Do what you want. As the Quran says, اعملوا ما شئتم. Do whatever you want. Allah says, do whatever you want. Don't worry. فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Whoever wants to can believe, and whoever wants to can disbelieve. But why not try and think about, number one, if Allah or God or an ultimate creator could have actually generated all that you see around you. Try and put yourself in the position of a believer for a day. Look around the cosmos and think, do I have a purpose? Think with those kind of fundamental existential questions. Really try your best to think of these things. And when you're ready and you've thought about it enough, then you can ask one of us to be educated on Islam. We're not going to accept a debate because we've already debated you, and you don't have anything to offer us, but we will accept that you can become our student.
Oh, you're a student.
No,
so he's open to studentship with you. Studentship's a word.
No. You can come, no problem. But it has to be. You have to just submit to. I'm not saying to the authority.
Submit to Hijab. That sounds wrong, bro.
Not submit like that.
Submit himself to God and want to learn sincerely and humbly, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, thank you for
coming.
coming.
Cut your hair, brother. Yeah, because
that's just his personal thing.
No,
I actually like his hair.
You like his hair?
I like his hair. It's nice.
No, I like it. I think if he cuts a little bit longer.
It's nice style he's got going. Yeah.
No problem.
But that's subjective anyway. Thank you guys for watching. Until next time, make sure to subscribe and share your thoughts, leave your comments below, and have your discussions below as well. And any questions, let us know. Until next time, take care.